you ever talked with someone that agreed that objective morality exists, but did not agree that God existed? How does that person base their objective moral standard? They normally say that it has evolved through evolution, it's in the human race, but they have to base it on something. Now, I ask my students this question, they give me one of two responses. Either one, it's based on the majority. Whatever the majority of humanity decides is morally right, then that is morally right. Or it is the authority. Whatever the governments decide to be right and wrong becomes that objective standard. Now let's apply that logic, that thinking, to this classroom. Inside of this classroom, who is the majority? It's the students. And the authority, powerful authority figure, the teacher. Now, as the majority, the students, can the students do whatever they want? No, of course they can't. The students cannot skip tests, skip their homework, disobey the teacher, not show up to class, and still get A's. That just doesn't happen. The students are held to some standard. Now, what about the teacher? As the authority figure inside the walls of the classroom, can the teacher do whatever the teacher wants? Well, no, in my class, if I decide to fail my students for using the wrong color of pen or just creating whatever reason like I don't like them, that would be wrong. I have to be fair, and I cannot beat up on students and mistreat them. I have to treat them fairly. Now, one example I like to do is an experiment is I give my students back a test and I just write that a couple of them failed. Now, I did this a little while ago, and one of my students immediately objected and said, "The school is not going to let you get away with this." Now, what was that student unknowingly doing? That student was leaving the classroom and appealing to an outside authority, the principal. That objective standard, outside standard over our school that creates and enforces the laws that the majority as well as the authority inside the room have to follow. If the principal didn't exist, in fact, if nothing existed outside my classroom, then it would be the authority's opinion versus the majority's opinion. Anything could happen and no one could say that the other was objectively right or wrong. In order to have objective morality, you need an outside objective standard, an authority. Now let's apply that same logic, that same thinking to our universe. Inside the four walls of our universe, we have the majority, the people, and we have the authority, the governments or the powerful leaders of countries. Now, can the people, the majority people, decide right and wrong? The next time Apple comes out with a new phone, if the majority decides they get it for free, do they just get it for free? Well, no, the majority doesn't get whatever it wants. The majority doesn't get to do whatever it wants. But what about the authority governments? If the government makes a law, does that make it an objective standard that everyone has to follow? Well, no, of course not. If the government begins to make laws that are immoral, then the majority, the people, will revolt. The same thing that my student did. And what will they do? They will appeal and say, "This is not right. You can't do this." What are the people doing in that situation? They are appealing to an outside authority, God. Now, one of my students responded and said, "Well, you know, that doesn't prove the Christian God." And the student was absolutely correct. This doesn't prove the Christian God to be true, but it proves that there is a being, a personal being that can create laws and enforce laws that exists outside of our material universe. If that being didn't exist, it would be the opinion of the governments versus the opinion of the people. Everyone would have their opinion, and we would not know right from wrong. We could not base or ground our objective right and wrong. in order to say that there are things that are objectively right and objectively wrong, we need an outside objective authority, God.